Yo, holy smokes, we are back with another one. So today we have 5 more unique rental codes for season 2 of Regulation H. So this first team that we're going to be going over, and I'm going to just do a quick rundown of the teams because there'll be a full team breakdown when I showcase each team in future videos that are be coming out over the next month. So this team is built around Infernape. So Infernape is a really cool fighting type that pressures a lot of things in the format like Mouse Hold, Archaludon, Gholdengo if it tears into Steel. Just a lot of things that are weak to like fighting coverage. Porygon too is another candidate. Stuff like that. It does really good damage into it. And Flare Blitz also pressures Gholdengo, but even if it tears into like Steel, or if it stays with the ghost typing, right? So you can hit it super effective before and after terror. Usually, it's 50-50 chance between when you're on best of one ladder, whether you're running up against a Dragon Terra Gholdengo or a Steel Terra Gholdengo. But either way, it does really good into it, and it combos really good with the Gholdengo on this team when you go for fake tears, right? So you drop your special defense by 2, and then you're just able to remove things from the field. So it's a really cool strategy to go for. And I think it complements this team well. It also, you can do that next to the Primarina or the Hydreigon on this team. So the we went with Blaze since Iron Fist doesn't boost close combat. Blaze was the next best ability, and it just allows you to do more damage with Flare Blitz when you get down to your sash, right? Which is kind of often, since Infernape is not that bulky, but it is really fast. It's like one of the fastest fake out mons in the format. And the only more common, the fastest common fake out user that you have to go up against is usually Sneasler, right? Other than that, Sneasler doesn't always carry fake out, so you're going to be faking out everything goes first, right? So it's really cool. The Hydreigon on this team is really meant to shut down those Porygon and those Ursaluna teams that are running around. You can lead this with Infernape, fake out the Incineroar because they like to lead Incineroar with Porygon, fake out the Incineroar and taunt the Porygon, right? And then you'll be in a good spot from there because you're denying Trick Room, and then you can just close combat either one of those with Stellar Terror and just Draco Meteor and pick up a KO on either one of them, right? So you'll be in a good spot from that point, or you can just switch out Infernape into Gholdengo because they're really not threatening much with Porygon when Gholdengo comes out on the field. The safety goggles just allows you to avoid redirection, just gives you a Mogus counter, and also is really good into the Torkoal Lilligant stuff, because Torkoal Lilligant likes to go for after you eruption, you can tear into fire and just taunt the Lilligant or dark pulse the Torkoal, and they're not doing a lot of damage, right? So it's a really cool strategy into that. This Primarina is also unique. So this is actually going to be a Rock Terra Primarina with Assault Vest. This Primarina is super bulky and it's really good into like Trick Room teams and Side Spam, as well as Torkoal Sun Room teams. This allows you to hit Torkoal for super effective damage while the sun is up. You go for Rock Terror, you still have the resistance into fire, and then you just hit it with a Terra Blast and remove it, right? So it's a really cool strategy to go for. And Rock gives you some pretty unique, not immunities, but just pretty good resistances, like the Sneasler's Dire Claw, which can usually remove Primarina. Now you resist it, right? Also, you resist just a lot of other common things, like you still resist fire, so it's a really good Terra for it, but it also gives you a little bit more offense, so that's why we chose to go with it. This Gholdengo also is going to have Power Gem. Other than that, it's a standard Choice Spec set. And Thunderbolt with Choice Specs with max special attack Gholdengo is also really good into Dondozo. Most Dondozo right now are running full speed, and I've been able to just cut their HP in half with a Thunderbolt, right, and then finish them off with any of the other mons. So it helps you with the Dondozo matchup. Also, you have Murkrow, and if you just haze away their boost, then Thunderbolt just picks up a KO on Dondozo. So it's really cool to have that Thunderbolt because there's a lot of water types in the format right now. Also, Primarina, you can remove it without having to drop your special attack of like tearing into Steel and go for Make It Rain. So it's a really cool coverage move, and it really helps in a lot of different situations. Murkrow on this team is really there to support the Gholdengo. So you have that that lead where you can lead Murkrow and Gholdengo and just go for Tailwind plus Make It Rain, and then just haze away your special attack drops. It's a combo that's been around since Regulation A, and it's still really good in this format. Also, Garchomp fits this team really well. It's a really strong mon, and the ground coverage is really good into things that Gholdengo doesn't do well into, and like Archaludon, and it just pressures a lot of things and forces terrors. and allows like Infernape and Gordingo to like clean up the end game, right? So it's really good next to Murkrow. Also with Earthquake, you can Quake next to Murkrow, you can Quake next to Hydreigon. And Double Dragon is also just always really strong, right? Just be careful that you're not Earthquaking next to like Infernape or Gordingo, but that's why we went with Stumping Tantrum, just in case you're in that situation, so that you're not completely stuck clicking Dragon Claw, right? Ground Terror is gonna make sure that you get the most out of your ground type damage along with Life Orb, and this Garchomp just does so much damage, and it's really strong. So it was a last minute addition to this team when I was building it. Initially, I had Bascaliber in that slot, but Bascaliber always needed the Terra into ground in order to do like really good ground damage with Earthquake, because I had that in that slot going for Earthquake, right? But I decided that Garchomp just already being ground and being able to do a little bit more damage with the ground type attacks and not necessarily having to tear it just worked out better for this team. And it was a really good addition because our Bascaliber was weak to Sneasler. Garchomp is really good into Sneasler, and Sneasler was kind of good into this team when I was testing it, right? Especially the Sneasler with the Throat Chop, because it can still hit Gordingo. So Garchomp was a really good addition to this team, and it kind of rounded it out and made this team very powerful. But there's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. And we're going to get to the next team. Alright, so now we have our Dondozo Kingambit team. So this team is a really unique Dondozo team that I want to showcase, and I told you guys I'm going to have a Dondozo team for you every format or every season. You know, there's a lot of people that love, you know, the way I build Dondozo teams, and this is another unique one. So this one's going to feature Kingambit. This is a pretty standard Kingambit set. One thing to note is that it's with the black glasses and Dark Terror, but it doesn't have Iron Head or Sword Stance. So we have Low Kick, which helps you pressure a lot of other Kingambits in the format and any other like normal types or like Incineroar, so you're not just completely walled. And the reason that we don't have Swords Dance on it, because you can combo this with Annihilate, and usually they protect when they see like Annihilate next to Kingambit. Usually if it's another Kingambit, they might play kind of passive, and you can just pass a quick coaching boost to your Kingambit. Now you're dealing a lot of damage, right? And once you get 2 coaching boosts onto this Kingambit, it's like really hard to remove, right? So it's a really good mon, and it's just pressures a lot. It forces your opponent to, with Kingambit and Annihilate on the same team, they really never want to bring Intimidate. So it was easier for us to drop the Clear Amulet on the Dondozo, because they're not really bringing Intimidate to this team. Next we have Dondozo, pretty standard with the Grass Terror. Initially I had Steel Terror on this Dondozo, but I felt like because I'm running this type of Dragonite set that I'm running, that we had a really good matchup into Amoonguss. And being able to get around like a lot of sleep and things like that was also better for me when I chose to go with the Grass Terror. So Grass Terror is really good for this Dondozo set. You could go with Steel Terror if you want to remake this team, but I think Grass Terror just giving us a better Amoonguss matchup was just really good in my opinion. Tatsugiri is going to be really unique because it's max speed with Stellar Terror. This allows Tatsugiri to survive with the Focus Sash. It can survive like a huge hit when your opponent tries to KO Dondozo and then knock out Tatsugiri in the same turn. They can't do that with the Focus Sash, right? And with being max speed, just getting off one attack with this, with Stellar Terror, if you do preserve your Terra for it, is just so threatening. Especially Stellar Terror Draco Meteor, you just remove so many things that are neutral. That's not really very specially defensive, or if it's super effective, it's just gonna take it out, right? So this Tatsugiri actually does a lot of damage, and it has, you know, came up clutch in a lot of games in my practice games with this team. This Dragonite. Now this Dragonite combos really well with the Annihilate, because what you do is you lead Dragonite and Annihilate, and then you go for coaching into Terra Blast with Flying Terror, and you just doing so much damage across the board where your opponent, it's very hard for them to recover. And if you have Dondozo in the back when you lead this, it's very hard for your opponents to, you know, deal with that combo up front as well as deal with Dondozo in the back. So it's a really cool strategy. Really pushes out a lot of damage, and also with the coverage of ice, ground, and flying, it's just very hard to switch into that. Then you have E-Speed to just chip things that may survive for like a little bit of HP, but with those coaching boosts, Extreme Speed is still hitting pretty hard. So it allows you to, the Assault Vest allows you to be more flexible with switching your moves, but you still get the coaching boost, so it's almost like you still have that choice band, right? So it's kind of like you're cheating the choice bands, like you choice band it, but you can switch your moves. And I think that's a really cool, you know, strategy to go for this Dragonite, and it is very strong. Next we have Mousehold. Now this Mousehold is a unique Mousehold set. So Mousehold, a lot of people do not respect offensive Mousehold, And you can also go for coaching into this mouse hole and just, you know, deal huge damage to your opponent before they're even able to move, and you just knock out things, right? And what Dondozo teams like to do is just knock out your opponent's mons. And when you're doing that, just allows Dondozo to, you know, thrive in the end game. And it's very hard to beat Dondozo when your opponent doesn't have resources. And that's what this mouse hole, you know, aims to do, is just removes your opponent's resources. So we went with the Technician and Wide Lens. I thought about going with Normaterra, but having the immunity to other population bombs, because I've seen that mouse hold has had a rise in usage. So when you lead Annihilate plus mouse hold, you're able to go for coaching it to your mouse hold. You can go for Ghost Terror, and then you become immune to other opposing mouse holds, right? Which is really strong in my opinion. And if their mouse holds try to tear into Ghost, we went with Shadow Claw on here just to hit those Ghost types, because once you get like a coaching booster too, like Shadow Claw is just removing anything that it hits for super effective damage, right? Even though mouse hold attack is low, that's what the Shadow Claw is there for. So it's really good. And we also still have redirection in case you bring mouse hold in the end game and you just want to redirect away from Kingambit or Dragonite, because they're boosted up with coaching in case you like leave Dondozo behind. And last but not least, we have Annihilate. Notably, we don't have any ghost type attacks on this. That's why we have it on the mouse hold. But this Annihilate just aims to do a lot of damage and also just boost your teammates up. One cool thing that you can do is go for coaching into Dondozo and then just go for like wave crashes without even switching to Tatsugiri. And it allows you to play around things like haze and like getting locked in with Tatsugiri, so you don't always have to click it, right? And wave crash at +1, even without Tatsugiri, still doing a lot of damage. So you can do that, and then if you're able to switch in Tatsugiri, now your Dondozo's at like +4, +5, +6, just depending on how many coaching boosts you gave it. So it's a really cool strategy, and a lot of people don't expect you to play Annihilate and Dondozo in that manner, and it really does help, you know, close out a lot of games. So we also have Final Gambit, just in the case that Annihilate just needs to remove something from the field that's like a huge threat to what you have in the back, and you have that flexibility to go for that. Close combat is very powerful fighting type coverage. If your opponent makes the mistake of leading like Incineroar into this team, then you just get a +1 to your close combat, and it's really threatening KOs from that point. And last but not least is just U-turn for pivoting. We went with Grass Terror so that you're able to get around a Mungus Rage Powder and just go for your Final Gambits or whatever attacks you're trying to go for into your opponents, right? And a lot of opponents really get caught off guard by the Grass Terror on Annihilate and still being able to just Final Gambit whatever target you want. So it's a really cool strategy. But there's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. Let's get into the next one. All right, now this team is really cooking. So this is going to be Porygon-Z. This team is really cool because Porygon-Z with, you know, Terra Blast, Thunderbolt, and like Bolt Beam coverage, you're just really able to cover a lot of the format for super effective damage. And with adaptability, you're just doing a lot of damage with your Terra Blast. And with Terra Ground on this set, because what you aim to do is catch up on. This is definitely a best of 1 team, but like I said, all my teams are functioning best of 3 because your opponent still has to counter what you're going for, right? You don't necessarily always have to go for like tricks, and you can kind of play with standard with these teams. But this team is really gonna, the Porygon specifically is gonna thrive in best of 1 because the Archaludons just get removed from the field, right? You pressure Pelipper with Thunderbolt, and you pressure Archaludon with Ground Terror, Terra Blast with a 1-hit KO. Unless it's the sturdy set, then you just double it up with like a Meowscarada, and it's just a really strong combo. Now with Meowscarada, you're going for Fake Tears into whatever your opponent has on the other side of the field. Now you're able to just remove anything, right? You remove Incineroar with Terra Blast and Fake Tears, and Meowscarada's not Prankster, so you can Fake Tears in Psychic Terrain. And a lot of the times your opponent does not like to bring Fake Out to this team because you have Indeedee. But if they do bring Fake Out, you can always just double protect with Porygon and Meowscarada and then go for those Fake Tears. So it's a really threatening combo, and it really just wins you games instantly, and you kind of clean up the end game with like Espeon and Indeedee. So that's pretty much it for the Porygon set. The Gallade set is also, Gallade just does so much damage. Fighting coverage is really good in this format, and I feel like this team really needed a fighting type to help you deal with the dark types and the steel types that kind of resist your Espeon, right? So it's really good into that. If your opponent brings fighting types to deal with Porygon, then you just hit them with Psycho Cut. Pretty standard. We went with Ghost Terror just so you're able to get around just random Fake Outs if you just lead Gallade without Indeedee. Thinking back at it, I think we maybe could have went with like Fire Terror or something like that to resist like those fire type damages. But Ghost Terror felt really good when I was testing this team, and I really like to bring Gallade without Indeedee sometimes and get up Trick Room without getting faked out. So it's really cool in that regard. Next, you have Ursaluna. So this Ursaluna in practice was very strong. So if you do go with the Indeedee Gallade mode and you get up Trick Room, this thing with Substitute and Poison Terror is so hard to remove even outside of Trick Room that your opponent doesn't really have a lot of options into hitting it for super effective damage. And then you just remove them with Facade, right? So it's a really cool Ursaluna set, and it complements this team because your opponents are usually baited into not bringing their Tailwind teams, and if they don't, then Meowscarada and Espeon pretty much outspeed everything in the format except like Talonflame. So you're able to just really deal a lot of damage and not have to worry about Tailwind, but you also have the Trick Room mode. And DD is also really cool because it's Terra Fire, helps you get around things like Eruption plus Make It Rain and just get your Trick Room up. You can always Wide Guard, but sometimes you really just want to follow me and Trick Room with Gallade, and this can kind of help you defensively, just keeping DD around. And Fire Terror Terra Blast is just really unique coverage. Allows Indeedee to have a super effective move into like grass types, things to like Rillaboom, so you win that matchup instead of just getting removed from Rillaboom when you have like Fairy Terror or the Water Terror, right? So this allows you to win that matchup against the Rillaboom. Rocky Helmet also just allows you to deal some chip damage to your opponent when they're not really expecting it. Meowscarada, this is going to be a pretty standard Meowscarada set. One thing to note, instead of like Sucker Punch, we have Fake Tears. So like I said, Fake Tears combos really well with Porygon, but it also combos really well with the Espeon. So Espeon likes to deal a lot of damage, and if you get Espeon in next to Meowscarada, what you do is you lead Espeon and Indeedee. If they don't have dark types or steel types, even with steel types, you're still dealing a lot of damage with Expanding Force. And once Indeedee goes down, you just bring in Meowscarada and you just clean up the game with like Fake Tears and Expanding Force. So it combos really well with that, and it's really hard for your opponent to like have proper switch-ins for this. We went with the Twisted Spoon on the Espeon just because I felt like Life Orb was a lot better on Porygon. So we are missing some, some crucial damage with Dazzling Gleam Life Orb. But Dazzling Gleam is just so you're not walled against the dark types, right? That's literally all it's for. Other than that, you're always just going to be clicking Expanding Force and dealing a lot of damage to Espeon. So this Espeon, I really wanted another Side Spam team to try something else out. And you think about why would you use Espeon as a Side Spam user instead of like Armor Rouge? Think about what's the fastest Psychic type with Expanding Force in the format, right? It's Espeon. Think about what's the hardest hitting Psychic type with Expanding Force in the format that's fast. It's going to be Espeon. The only one that hits harder than Espeon is going to be Hatterene, and Hatterene usually has to play in Trick Room, right? So Hatterene could fit on this team, but I really wanted to have an option to like play outside of Trick Room, and that's what this Espeon offers. And in practice, it's very good. It's very hard to have good counters for it. The Magic Bounce is really cool because it bounces back like Spore and just any status conditions, and your opponents usually don't really know Espeon's ability, so they can kind of catch things off guard like that. So there's a rental code also at the top right for this team, as well as a PokePaste in the description below. Let's get to the next one. All right, now this is my take on Basculegion Rain with Pelipper. So this team is also unique because the Basculegion, instead of running something like Choice Band or Life Orb, we chose to go with Splash Plate. Now, Splash Plate is pretty much the same thing as Mystic Water, but I just think Splash Plate looks cooler, so we went with Splash Plate. But it allows you the flexibility to protect and Wave Crash off Water Terror in the rain with Splash Plate. It's still picking up the same KOs that Choice Band was picking up, right? You might not just be able to one-shot like a Water type that resists you, but if with any chip from the rest of the team, like you're able to deal big damage. And also, if you don't finish them, you can just come in the back with Dragonite and finish them with extreme speed. So it's still, doing plenty of damage, and allows you to kind of play Basculegion on lead and not just have to flip turn out and just, threaten damage across the board. It's our Charladon set is another adaptation to the meta. It's really strong. I have seen some people go with the Aura Spear instead of Flash Cannon on this set just to hit, Kingambit, but I felt like we have enough coverage in this team to hit Kingambit with, powerful water damage from Basculegion, as well as a Weather Ball from Pelipper. So you could maybe switch out the Flash Cannon for Aura Spear just to make it a little bit more optimal. But Electric Terror, Electro Shot is still dealing so much damage. That's what you're going to be clicking most of the time anyway. And while you're in the rain, you're able to still click it, but this allows you to play around those sun teams. It allows you to not worry about switching Pelipper in and still getting your Archaludon Electro Shot off when a lot of your opponents may try to read the Pelipper switch in and double up into the Pelipper slot, right? So this also allows you to play around that. And then Draco Meteor, when you're at +1, just does so much damage. And Electric Terror Electro Shot just removes everything, right? So it's a really cool way to use Archaludon. This is also max speed timid, so we outspeed all Goldingo, and that's really crucial in a lot of different matchups, right? Next we have Pelipper. Pelipper is also really good. So I really felt like we didn't need Tailwind on this team because this team plays a little bit more standard and it has a bulky mode. I really thought that Tailwind was not better than Wide Guard because a lot of people don't expect Wide Guard on Pelipper. They're usually running like Tailwind and Protect, right? So Wide Guard really pressures a lot of teams into a lot of the spread moves that's in the format. And, you know, I hear a lot of people just say that they're happy that they went against a Pelipper that didn't have Wide Guard. So that made me feel like Wide Guard is really good on this set. So that's why we decided to go with it. The Ghost Terror is still there just to help you deal, you know, to get around Fake Out in case you need to attack with Pelipper turn 1. But Stellar Terror is also something that could be good there if you're just thinking about, you know, optimizing a little more since we do have Protect. But Ghost Terror is still good just to get around that Fake Out. But Protect is really valuable because a lot of people like to double in the Pelipper and just get it off the field. Next we have Amoonguss. So Amoonguss is going to be really unique because it has Dark Terror instead of something like Water. Water has become a little bit too predictable for people on Amoonguss, and it also like is really bad into other opposing rain teams because Archaludon Pelipper just goes for a Hurricane into you, and if you tear in the water, Archaludon hits you with Electro Shot, right? So Dark Terror just gives you a little bit more flexibility when it comes to surviving those hits, and also is really good into those side spam teams with Kingambit and Amoonguss. They set up side spam, you're just able to sit in front of them with these two. Redirect attacks away with Amoonguss and just KO things with Kowtow Cleave from Kingambit. So it's a really cool strategy, and the Amoonguss Kingambit Dragonite gives you a really cool defensive core. Steel Poison and Dragon Flying just combos together really well, and they cover for a lot of each other's weaknesses, right? So it's a really strong core that's kind of hard to deal with. And this Dragonite just puts out damage. It's going to be multi-scale with Salt Vest instead of the Inner Focus set. And the reason we chose to go with multi-scale is just I wanted a little bit more bulk on this Dragonite, so this team has a bulky mode. And with Pelipper on this team, with Basculegion on this team, with Kingambit on this team, it really decentivizes you into bringing like Intimidate or Incineroar, right? So I felt like we didn't really need Inner Focus because of the fact that we have so much anti-Incineroar on this team. And the Kingambit is going to be pretty much a standard Swords Dance Black Glasses set. So this is going to be probably, even though this team has a lot of different techs, it might be the most like common team that you might see in the format, but just like with different sets, right? But the way that I built it still makes it like really unique. So if you guys are interested in Basculegion Rain or Archaludon Rain, whichever you want to call it, and this is the team for you, go ahead and give it a try. But there's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. All right. And last but not least, we have our Glimmora Flamigo team. So this team was inspired by the team that I hit rank 1 with, the Landorus team. And while it's not the same mons, it does still have the Frigoraph on it, which was a huge component to me, you know, winning with that team. And I decided to like put like a lot of pieces that were very similar or play similar roles, right? So the Frigoraph, of course, remains the same. The Glimmora on this team is going to replace the Landorus that I had on that team. It still has the poison and the ground coverage, and also the Power Herb allows you to hit pretty much almost as hard as Landorus hit. Of course, Landorus is a legendary, so it just does a little bit more. But with the Grass Terror, this Glimmora is able to play a little bit more defensive and has a little bit more surprise factor. Meteor Beam is also really good at just threatening huge KOs on things that are weak to rock. And Spiky Shield is just like the best protect ever, right? Because it chips you if you double into it, or if you just target it with a physical attack, you get chipped. So Glimmora is also, it's going to be max speed timid. So this ensures that we always outspeed Goldingo, which is really cool because being able to outspeed max speed timid Goldingo and get off that earth power if you have +1 and just remove it is really valuable for like winning that matchup. So it's really good that we have that on there, and it really plays offensively just like the Landorus on that team. This Incineroar is going to replace the Iron Hands that I had on that team. So the Iron Hands was Assault Vest, and it was able to just be really bulky and help Frigoraph set up Trick Room and also just deal damage. So this Incineroar is also max attack. We went with Grass Terror so that you're able to get around like Amoonguss Spore in case they do bring Amoonguss out when you set up Trick Room, and you're able to just remove Amoonguss from that point with the Flare Blitz. And max attack Incineroar with knockoff and Flare Blitz does a lot of damage, and with the Assault Vest you just have so much bulk and you're really good into a lot of these special attackers that are in the format. Next is going to be our pick with the Mamoswine. So this is going to replace the Hisuian Arcanine I had on the team. While it does play a completely different role because that Hisuian Arcanine offered Intimidate and was Choice Banded, this is just so good into a lot of things in the format. I felt like this team needed a Dondozo answer, and I still wanted to have like another powerful physical attacker on the team. And I was looking for a ground type that can also that has haze and also can like threaten like flying types with ice type attacks, right? Because ice coverage is really good in this game, and also it threatens the sneezers that run around with the ground type coverage, right? So this Mamoswine with loaded dice, you're able to get like 4 or 5 hits with Icicle Spear, just does so much damage. And this mon is able to also play under Trick Room and on Tailwind. So it's one of those mons that has like that middling speed, which is perfect for this type of team. And the Water Terror just allows you to be able to, you know, survive a Wave Crash from Dondozo and then just remove his boost with Haze. So you're gonna bring this into most of your Dondozo matchups, because if you didn't have this and we had the Arcanine there, then you kind of just lose to Dondozo with this team, right? You can always play around it, but in a lot of ways, Dondozo would be good into this team without the Haze, so that's why we have it. So Flamigo is going to be here. This is going to replace the Dark Urshifu that I had on the team. I was looking for a fighting type that can threaten with close combat and was very fast and also was good with Focus Sash, right? And that's what I found Flamigo. Flamigo is also just gives this team a little bit better Gholdengo matchup. Like Gholdengo's already struggles with this team with the Water Terror, Mamoswine, the Glimmora having Earth Power, and Incineroar being Assault Vest. So it already struggled, but just being able to threaten like a lot of normal types and also threaten Incineroar with close combats is just really valuable. You threaten Amoonguss also with Brave Bird. You threaten Rillaboom with Brave Bird, and this threatens a lot of things in the format. And it was like the glue for this team, and it allows me to win a lot of matchups. This team was lacking some speed control when I needed to go fast, so I added Tailwind to this mon, because Tailwind next to like Glimmora, when they usually play passive in front of this type of lead to see what you're going to lock into, but they think you might not lock into, but they want to waste your Meteor Beam, which is fine with me because we still get the +1, and whatever you can't hit with Glimmora with Sludge Bomb, the Flamigo can just hit it with close combat, right? So they really cover like the entire format with flying, fighting, ground, and poison coverage. So usually when they protect in front of this, we just go for Tailwind, and then you're just able to outspeed. A lot of people don't really expect Tailwind on Flamigo because it's usually Wide Guard in that slot, right? And in best of one, that's really strong because people always are going to assume that Flamigo has Wide Guard. So it disincentivizes them from clicking their spread moves, right? Or forcing you to click Wide Guard, and it allows for a lot of opportunities to just go for Tailwind. Ghost Terror is also allows you to get around Fake Out turn 1. Of course, you have Graph for that as well. So you could go with something like Stellar Terror, but sometimes you don't always want to switch in your Graph. And also this helps you get around like things like E-Speed too. So it's a really cool, powerful mon. And it really was the glue for this team. And like I said, it fits that Urshifu Dark slot that I had. Next is a Farigiraf. Pretty similar set. One thing is that I changed some of the EVs. It's the same Water Terror Farigiraf. Water Terror is just really good into like Make It Rain plus Eruption and getting up your Trick Room, right? Since you don't actually have a redirector, you only have Fake Out. So sometimes you can't lead Incineroar, so that Water Terror really helps. Now if they do lead Rillaboom, is much better if you lead your Incineroar, but usually they don't have that combo. But also you can just lead Mamoswine plus Farigiraf and threaten a Rillaboom with an Icicle Spear, since Mamoswine outspeeds Rillaboom, and then you just go for Icicle Spear and get your Trick Room up from that point. So it's a really cool strategy, and this Farigiraf just aims to just deal damage and not just be passive. And last but not least, we have like the coolest member of this team, which is going to be Gardevoir. So this Gardevoir is meant to play like, it was an arm bundle in this slot, right? But I kind of wanted it to play more like Flutter Mane. Even though arm bundle used to have Encore, I didn't run a water move on that arm bundle slot. It was Freeze Dry, Icy Wind, Encore, and Protect. So we run Choice Gardevoir because it allows me to have, you know, more speed and outspeed a lot of things in the format. But Gardevoir is base 125 special attack. This thing is actually hits like a truck, and it is no joke. When you go for Fairy Terror, Dazzling Gleam, or Moonblast with the Helping Hand from Farigiraf, and it can't be faked out, you're just dealing so much damage across the board. And it really reminds me of Flutter Mane, how Flutter Mane used to just be fast and go with the choice specs and just click Dazzling Gleam into everything. Now Gardevoir could run choice specs, but it's very slow and doesn't have that same speed boost like Fluttermane does with booster energy, or just Fluttermane just naturally being fast. So you do miss out on the specs damage, but you're still, with Helping Hand from Farigiraf, you're able to deal like a lot of damage with Dazzling Gleam and Moonblast, and you just pick up a lot of hits. The Icy Wind helps this team because Flamigo, Glimmora, and Mamoswine are all like middling speed mons. So at +1, they outspeed everything, including Dragapult. So it's really cool that Gardevoir can, I mean, even though you can't drop Dragapult's speed, right? But you can just remove Dragapult with a Moonblast. But other mons that in the format at that are around like the fastest mid speed tier or fast speed tier, you just go for Icy Wind, and then all these mons just outspeed them, right? And a lot of people don't really expect Icy Wind from Gardevoir. So if you do lead Gardevoir into a matchup and it doesn't really have like pressure with Dazzling Gleam damage or Moonblast damage, just go for that Icy Wind and then just KO something with like Glimmora, or Mamoswine, or Flamigo, and it's really strong when they're not expecting to get knocked out, or they're expecting to outspeed those, right? So it's really cool in that regard. And I did have Psychic on this team at first on the Gardevoir to help you deal with Amoonguss, but I really felt like this team had a lot of answers to Amoonguss with Mamoswine and Incineroar and Flamigo threatening it for super effective damage, as well as Farigiraf. So we dropped the Psychic and went with Trick. So Trick allows you to, a really cool thing that allows you to do is you can trick a Choice Scarf onto something on the other side of the field and set up Trick Room with Farigiraf. And now Gardevoir actually underspeeds the mons that it outsped before, and Trick Room was up, so now they're going to be going last because now they have a Choice Scarf. And it's really good into things that want to set up. You trick a Choice Scarf onto them, they set up, they either have to switch, and if they switch, now they're just switching into like a Dazzling Gleam or a Moonblast, plus like a Hyper Voice or a Psychic right now. Like I said, the only thing you can switch into that are Steel types. What are Steel types weak to? Ground coverage from Mamoswine, fighting coverage from Flamigo, Flare Blitz from Incineroar, and Earth Power from Glimmora. So this team just has a really good balance about itself. It really does a lot of damage, and it's really unique. And I'm the most excited to use this team because, like I said, it reminds me of the team I hit rank 1 with, and that's kind of like the inspiration for how I built it. And it kind of just came together. So if you guys are, like this team, you think it's unique, if you think it'll work, go ahead and give it a try. There's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. And that's going to be it for these 5 rental codes. If you guys are interested in any of these, like I said, all of the PokePaste are in the description below, as well as the rental codes are up there at the top right. So give these teams a try, leave a comment, let me know what you guys think, and subscribe, turn those post notifications, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay tuned, more videos soon. Deuces.